The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Jim Hyland, President of Oravital. Welcome you to the webinar tonight, co-hosted with Danny Bobrow of AIM Dental Marketing. Danny has impressive credentials. He's president of AIM Dental Marketing and has been serving clients for 26 years. He started Climb for a Cause and the Smile Tree, charitable organizations that he devotes a tremendous amount of time to. He is a certified practice consultant. He was one of the people that started AOSH, an organization that I'm very proud of. And I'm hoping the message he gets tonight will be one that can relate to most of the dental practices and anyone that answers the phone in the dental office. I know when I call dental offices, I get a range of first impressions, and first impressions are very important, and that's what we'll be talking about, the art of first impression. And a lot of things could be improved. And as your practices improve, Oravital does, and so we're teaming with groups of people to do this. Danny is well skilled in this area and has helped thousands of dental offices to improve their first impressions, their telephone techniques, how they communicate with their clients, and all this is very, very important. And with that, I know there's quite a message Danny wants to deliver. I'm hoping that you'll take gems away from this presentation you can use immediately, and that you'll consider contacting and working with Danny in a coaching capacity as we do with Oravital in the future to improve your practices. So, Danny, could you take over now, please?
It would be a pleasure, Jim, and thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks to all of you for spending a little time with me this evening. I promise to make it worthwhile for you, and I particularly appreciate Jim and Oravital for the opportunity, but also for the great service and benefits potential that Oravital offers participating practices to deliver to their patients. It's very much consistent with our mission and values, and I kind of wanted to begin with that. It's actually part of the coaching that we offer through the Art of First Impressions, which is to help focus in on what is unique, special, and differentiable about your practice. And given that you are or are considering being an Oravital practice, I already know that about you, that places you in the upper echelon of practices. And Jim, if you want to mute your line, you may want to do that. I'm getting some background noise.
Okay, thank you.
I thought I would share it with you. You have a very sensitive headset, which we can talk about soon as well. In terms of a focusing exercise, we like to focus on really 4 questions. We want you to focus on these 4 questions, and ideally you'll answer these questions in the form of an exercise with your team, because when the team are involved, first of all, you get some very valuable input and data and suggestions to really crystallize in 1 or 2 sentences who you are, what you do, for whom you do it, and why you do it. And as I said, I already know a little bit about you just by virtue of the fact that you're attending this webcast. Number 1, you're committed to improving or identifying areas of improvement to better connect with patients, to deliver the care that they deserve and that you can provide. And also that you are sort of walking the walk, not just talking the talk, by offering an enhanced level of hygiene care through the Oravital offering. And just by way of example, and I guess maybe as an opportunity to share a little bit of background on who we are, what we do, for whom we do it, and why, AIM Dental Marketing is committed to improving and preserving the health of the people of North America, primarily by working with private practice dentists who share this vision. So it's very much a partnership, as it is with Oravital. We've got your back, and we want you to get out there and do as much good for as many people as you can, and to do well while you're doing good, as Ben Franklin is purported to have said. And our working tagline, because this is something that we're really just rolling out, which is, when you call us, we'll say, thank you for calling AIM Dental Marketing, where we get the connection. This is Danny. How may I help you? This is actually the greeting a variant of which we will assume and hope that you state when you answer the phone. And I often tell people that sharing the tagline as part of your greeting absolutely is intended to differentiate yourselves and your practice and to create that brand identity, but it's at least as important for the person who is uttering it, in other words, your team member, because it reminds them who you are, what you do, for whom you do it, and why. It's a reminder of why we're special, why we're in business, and how we can help people. What we're going to cover today in fairly rapid succession, because this is essentially an overview of the entire coaching curriculum that we offer, which typically runs a year to 16 months, is setting the stage for success. We'll then delve down into what constitute effective components of communication, and we'll flow from that seamlessly into the visual gap, which will become apparent to you what that is once we introduce it, and then avoiding certain distinctions like the, as I call it, the self-fulfilling prophecy trap when you are communicating with people. We'll encourage you to not use negatively and to emphasize positively charged words and phrases in every aspect of communication. And then we'll move on to what I call the emotional, or really the emotional underpinning or foundation of effective communication. And these are empathy, rapport, and enthusiasm, which will nicely lead us into the real meat of the matter, which is the art and science of questioning and effective listening technique, all of which combine to achieve that goal in every conversation, which is agreement to pursue some desired course of action, usually scheduling an appointment. First, though, I want to get real with you, because this sort of falls under, a lot of this falls under the heading of we don't know what we don't know. You may have a vague sense that the team could do better, that there are opportunities that are not being capitalized upon when people call. But it's actually not that difficult to quantify and get quite specific with the how much it's costing a practice when they do not effectively and consistently connect with callers. And Jim, just to answer quickly your chat question, people do indeed qualify for CE if they submit if you follow through with the forms. I'm actually thinking this through. We do need to get a quiz out to attendees of 4 or 5 questions, and we are a PACE-approved provider, and so you and I will work offline on that and get the people to CE if they request it.
Thank you, Danny.
Sure thing. In terms of knowing your box score, as I like to call it, box score, for those of you who are not sports fans, it's just a collection of vital statistics that a team or fans or management follow to monitor and measure the status and progress of a team. And I think that a dental team should know its box scores. And at least 3 vital statistics that I consider are what we call new patient runs, hits, and at-bats. And you use these to calculate patient value as well as your batting average. And I'll show you what that is in a second, because all MVPs know their box scores. And we want you to all be MVPs. To calculate your team batting average, as I call it in this context, is simply a matter of dividing the number of appointments you schedule by the number of calls you receive from bona fide prospective patients. Our service does just that. That's what Call Track DNA does. And we'll talk a little bit about that toward the end of the broadcast. But for now, just understand that this is how we calculate the batting average. It's really quite simple, but a highly powerful statistic to be aware of and to track, both for your team as a whole and individual team members. Because the difference between your team batting average and 90% is what we refer to as the achievement gap. And really our goal is to close the achievement gap. Now, when you're talking about a team batting average, let's just say you have 100 calls that you get from bona fide prospective patients, and your team successfully converts 30% of those. That, incidentally, is around the average that we hear when we monitor and evaluate a new client before we've subjected them to the coaching. And in baseball, as you may know, for you Blue Jays fans or out there, or any fans, batting average of 300 in baseball is pretty darn good. It's Bush League when it comes to telephone skills. When you think about it, this makes sense because people who call your office, they're really calling because they're interested in your dentistry. They're not calling to get the weather or, you know, a recipe or the price of snow tires. They're calling about dentistry. And therefore, a master telephone communicator will consistently convert 90% or 90 of those calls. So if you're currently at 30%, batting 300, simply by mastering the art of first impressions, you can literally triple the number of new patients that you convert. And that's where we got the promise that we made, that you can literally triple the number of new patients you generate without investing an extra dollar in marketing. That is a fact. And what we want to do, though, is also calculate what your average patient value is. So as I said, we can quantify exactly what it's costing a practice by not having a team of master telephone communicators. It'll show you not only what you've earned, because when you calculate patient value, you can also make decisions about marketing plans that you may be considering. You know, what's my break even? And we have a tool that we can provide you in order to calculate all of that too. But what I've recently begun to use it for is to show what a practice could have earned. And that's simply by looking at how many calls you got, how many you converted into appointments, how many you could or should have converted, and just multiplying that number of missed appointments by your average patient value, and there goes your cost, your opportunity cost. And
Danny, if you look at the value of a single client, if you bring this up later on to a practice, because relating to the loss, but also the cost of being involved or not being involved with someone like yourself, I think it might put things in perspective in terms of what you offer as well.
It certainly will, and we do talk about that. In fact, I'm going to be talking about that on this slide, which is calculating patient value is important, and understanding when you're looking at a particular single patient that it's not only important how you calculate the value, but when. And this just illustrates what I like to call compound interest in the context of the dental practice, where we're measuring time across this horizontal scale. And when a patient first presents for treatment, they might just get a new patient exam, and you might just ask $100 for that because you may be offering it, or you may ask nothing. You may be offering a complimentary exam, x-rays, and consultation. If you measure return on investment at that point, or just patient value, it's zero or $100. But over time, that same patient will refer family and friends. They will present for recare, and every once in a while, somebody does some really major work. And when you look at it that way, you can see the total value of any given patient obviously varies, but it can be very significant based on when you measure it. But we're really interested in average patient value because that's a number that you calculate on your own, and you don't have to wonder if someone else is selling you a bill of goods when they say, well, look at how much money you can make. Well, you know, as long as you accept that the value of a patient is independent of its source, because sometimes people are under the misconception that somehow an internally generated patient is, quote, more valuable than an externally generated patient. It's when you think about it, it's easy to see why that's false, because they're all coming from the same community. I think when people say value, they just mean the ease with which we are able to convert that caller into a patient. In other words, if somebody is, quote, internally generated, it means that they had a need. They actively sought out somebody to see if their dentist was somebody that they could trust. And if they say yes, well, then they're calling you and they've already confirmed the need. they've already established credibility with you, and they're basically calling, and whoever answers that call is basically an order taker, not a salesman. They don't really need to go through the necessary skills that we're going to share to connect with a person emotionally, to let them know that you care about them, and basically warm them up to you and to the idea of visiting your practice. But with that assumption and belief in place, then calculating your average patient value is a very good tool for seeing just how valuable and worthy an investment it is to coach your team to become master telephone communicators. As I said, I will send you this. Anyone who requests it will give you the entire, not just the process for calculating average patient value, but we'll also give you the worksheet to do it for your practice. But basically what we recommend is that you randomly select 30 charts of patients who've been with the practice for a year or more. Divide the production into hygiene and non-hygiene, because there are different expense factors associated with each class of care. Total the production for each group. Calculate the net adjustment factor for each group. That's what I just referenced. And then add the totals together and divide by 30. And if you remember the central limit theorem from your statistics class, randomly selecting 30 from a representative sample of 30 from a population gives you pretty good predictive value. And that's why really that's all you need are 30 charts to come up with a true measure of the average annual patient value. This doesn't even take into account the lifetime value, which is, how long is the average patient with the practice? And we'll show you how to calculate that too. And if you multiply that number by the average value of the patient, now you know what the lifetime value is of a patient to your practice. And that's about all for math for this evening, folks. I'm sure you're sad to hear that. Well, now let's talk about setting the stage for success. And these are concerns that we hear, and frankly, more often probably don't hear from team members, that has to do with their ability to, or desire to be coached and to benefit from the coaching. And we spend no short amount of time delving deeply into these concerns with team members, because I want people to be willing participants. That's for everybody's sake. It makes it a lot more fun for me, but it's also much more valuable for the team member when they understand the value of what I am recommending that they do, because this does boil down to modifying behavior. And as we all know, people don't like to change. They're comfortable with where they are. Often they're maybe not happy, but they're comfortable because it's familiar. And the only way we're going to encourage people to change is if they see what's in it for them. And we're very big about helping people connect with their intrinsic motivation. But with that said, these are some concerns that we hear. And I list them here in no particular order because there really is no particular order. But these are some of the concerns. People who are perfectionists are really unwilling or afraid to try anything until they're completely comfortable with it. And the sad reality is that 80 to 90% of learning is by doing. And it's a great excuse to procrastinate when we say we're perfectionists. And the sad thing is that in our culture, whichever side of the border you're on, I think Canada or United States, we've been raised to think that perfectionism is a virtue, when in fact it's not. It's a vice, because it leads to procrastination, and it really limits people's flexibility and willingness to learn. As far as it not being your personality, it has nothing to do with your personality. If the only thing that we're coaching is to show someone how to let their true personality shine through the telephone. Because most people will, I'll just jump ahead, really express the frustration that our patients love us once they meet us. And what I'm reminding people of is that they're meeting you on the phone. The question is, how effective are you at conveying your personality and your caring over the telephone? Some people are frustrated that they weren't hired to do this. I just explained it's a dynamic world. This is an opportunity to acquire a skill that will make you even more indispensable to your employer. People have I think, largely a hate-hate relationship with scripts. They feel it's unnatural. And the fact is, a poorly recited script is unnatural. But when you think about the best movies that we remember that are a part of our collective culture, These were at one point scripts that were written by a screenwriter, handed to an actor and said, memorize this and do it. And really, the script is sort of like a crutch or a training wheel. Once an actor gets off book, the reality is that they don't really stick 100% to the script. They understand what their feelings and meaning they're being asked to convey. And another very important thing about scripts is it's not just the words, it's the order in which the words are presented. And you can imagine an actor taking a script and saying, well, I'll put this sentence above here and I'll move this one to the bottom. The entire meaning is lost, or certainly changed. And that's why when we talk about our... Sorry, Jim?
I was going to say, with Oravital, I try and tell teams that there is a scripting in how to present care to patients. And if it's not done in a logical order, you just don't get the standing ovation at the end. And you have to memorize these sorts of things, and you have to be comfortable. And I think you'll talk about the fact that when we talk about scripting, there's only a certain number of calls on average you get. 90% of them relate to 5 or 6 issues, and you should know how to handle them and handle them well. So it is very important to have this type of scripting down pat.
It absolutely is, and I know that you get this, and thanks for underscoring the point. But until people understand the reasoning, the feelings that the goals we're trying to achieve through the order of the script, to them it just looks like a random collection of words, and I understand that. They think, well, why don't I just use my words? They're just as good. Until they understand what we're trying to do, which is sometimes nuanced and subtle, we can't really expect them to do it. But this point was driven home to me this week because I'm preparing to actually compete in a speech competition in a couple of weeks. And I'm a little averse to mastering my speech scripts. And I think it's for the same reason everyone else is averse to it. It's like, even though I wrote the words, it's like I don't want to be chained to a series of words because it won't be natural. And you know what? I realize that's absolutely right. So what I've done is I've memorized the speech as well as I could, and then realized, well, what meaning am I conveying? And then I take the speech and I just reduce it to a few thoughts. And I say, I want to touch this point, this point, this point in this order. And I have improved greatly because I really understood the meaning behind the words. And when I give this speech now, they're never identical. No 2 speeches are identical. And it's the same when you talk to people on the phone, because the art of first impressions, as opposed to the science of first impressions, is realizing that every single conversation you have is its own work of art. And the only way to really make it work is to listen and judge how to convey what you're conveying to this particular person who you happen to be communicating with at the time. So thanks again for that. We talked about we didn't talk about callers being low quality, but we will when we talk about the self-fulfilling prophecy. So these are some of the concerns that we really try hard to address at the very beginning of the coaching so that we know everybody is on board. And this is probably pretty obvious too, but we also remind people that telephone skills are important because it is very much like your first date. The telephone call is the first impression you make. We always want to make a great first impression. And just as, if it helps to think about the dating scene, I think that reminds people why it's so important. It's also their first impression of you, of course, and the office, and it sort of sets the tone for your relationship going forward. It really helps confirm a fit between the caller and the team, and as such, it's your best marketing tool. A lot of people feel that marketing ends when the patient contacts the office, and I respectfully differ. I think it's only beginning, because marketing is all about communicating and delivering on promises. If you don't do that, you could be the best salesman in the world, but selling the sizzle and not having the steak is a losing proposition. And this is what you just touched on too, which is that we can pretty much predict 90 to 95% of the types of calls we're going to be getting, and therefore we should take the time to prepare to handle those calls, to not wing it, not improvise, because when we do that, everyone's happier because we've reduced stress and confusion. And it therefore gives us confidence and also instills a perception of quality about the entire practice. And we talk about the first date already and how really the phone call, I can usually tell by listening to a call within 15 seconds how that call is going to go. Because the first 15 seconds, if you want to think about it this way, is the first impression of the first impression that you're making with a caller. And I can usually tell if this call handler, if this team member is managing the call and connecting with this caller within the first 15 seconds. And we're still on setting the stage for success, and that has a lot to do with practice environment. Which of these images characterizes your environment? Is it chaotic and maybe even a little polluted, or is it serene? Now, that doesn't mean not busy. A practice can have a great energy and a great feel and tone about it, even when it's very busy, perhaps especially when it's very busy. I think of like some of the best restaurants. They are jumping, but yet I still feel like I'm being taken care of. I have the confidence that my entree will be served on time, hot, and what I ordered, and it'll be served with a smile, and I'll be attended to. It's almost like I'm reminded too when people say if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. So that busyness doesn't mean chaos if you have the tools and the proper environment. And setting the stage for success also depends in large part on your equipment. Is your telephone system up to the task? What sort of voicemail system do you have? What is the content of your outgoing messages? Do you have the flexibility to vary the messages during office hours, after hours, during lunch? Do you have an on-hold message? We hope you do, and you'll soon hear why. It's a wonderful tool that we employ in connecting with first-time telephone callers. And if your callers are hearing dead air or an out-of-tune radio station, that is not only, at the least, it's a missed opportunity to brand your practice, and at worst, it's an irritation that could lead the caller to hang up.
Do you help provide those services, Danny? The on-hold messages and that?
We do definitely offer, I think, an excellent subscription and very cost-effective service for on-hold messages. We also can help you get high-quality cordless headsets, which we highly recommend, and I think I'm preaching to the choir now, Jim, on that score.
I have to tell you that I do a lot of conference calls, and I was getting a very sore neck in holding my phone to my ear and trying to work on a computer at the same time. And Danny talked me into getting a cordless set. I did buy about 4 of them before I found one that worked well for me. But it's invaluable to have to free yourself up and to be, if you want to walk around or to move or to do something at the same time. And I just take a look at the people at the front desk and try to imagine how they work and get things done effectively and not be able to attend to their phone when they're running to the back of the office and their inability to work efficiently. So this is a prime thing to consider. Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, thank you. And we can help you get the headsets. And I didn't realize you had to go through 4 to get one that worked, but I'm glad you mentioned it because the companies that we work with are very flexible in that regard. They will gladly take back. They'll even send you samples, several to sample, and then you return the ones you don't want. And they're also easy to calibrate and to make, are compatible with just about any phone system. And you want to make sure that all your systems are working in concert, which largely means just knowing what's going on. Do you even know what your outgoing message says? How frequently do you update it? Is it current? Does your outgoing message reference your website? And while we're on the subject, when was the last time you looked at your website? Just a quick diversion, because this is important. Is it a fully responsive site? Because you know the majority of people surfing the web now are doing so from mobile devices. And if your site is not fully responsive, it's doesn't play nice with people that are using a mobile device, which, as I said, is the majority of web surfers. You're probably losing them. They're probably moving on. And this is, again, falls under the heading of you don't know what you don't know. But you can be losing a lot of opportunities and a lot of money if your site isn't responsive. But in any case, know what is on your website so you can talk to people about it when they ask questions. And if you have an on-hold message, do you know what it says? And are you updating it regularly to remind people that you're a member of the community, that you're not just a drill and a scalpel, or a probe. explore that you really are human beings. I think it's very important to remind people as dental practices that, hey, we're members of the community. You know, we've got kids too. We go out to eat. We have favorite restaurants. We support Little League teams, whatever it is. That's why on-hold messages is such a great tool also. But make sure you know what it is. And you know, for you doctors that have your own private parking space in the back of the office and you walk in through the back door for the last 12 years, take a walk through the front door and get the experience from the patient's perspective. You never know. You may be pleasantly surprised. You may be otherwise surprised. And we don't really get involved in telephone systems, but we can help you evaluate them to see if they're up to the task. You know, do you have enough lines? Are they on a hunt group? How many times does it ring before it's answered? Are you missing calls? We do get involved in that. We have a missed call text alert feature that we offer through CallTrack DNA. And on your website, we can do an online chat feature, which soon is going to be state-of-the-art, standard of care. And it's an excellent way to connect with people. We're all about capitalizing on opportunities and making connections. Thank you, Jim, for already talking about this. In a word, headsets equal freedom. And it requires change. Some people don't like them at first. They say it messes up their hair. I don't know about you, Jim, but I don't have that problem. But they can be calibrated. You can work with the technical support people. They're excellent. And there's no reason not to have a headset, and many reasons too. It frees you from the front desk. You can get to a quiet area. Probably prevents neck injuries in the future. It frees your hands up to work on the computer and enroll a patient. In terms of outgoing messages or voicemail, we never know when people are going to call. First impressions don't always wait. Just a couple of tips, and we do delve deeply into this. We have scripts and recommended verbiage for your outgoing messages, but should never ring more than 4 times before going to voicemail. I really think 3 rings during office hours is preferable. And after hours, you should have a system that allows you to reduce it to 0 rings. I mean, if you think about it, if you're not there and you know nobody's going to answer the phone, why not just have it immediately answer? That's a convenience for the caller. It also reduces the possibility, if they're on a cell phone, that they're going to go through a bad cell and lose the connection. It also eliminates the excuse that I can say, honey, yeah, you told me to call the dentist. I tried, and it just kept ringing, and they didn't answer, right? So you're eliminating that opportunity to avoid calling the dentist. Unless you have unbelievably great hours, I would completely avoid reference to hours and other fluff. Still, the most common message is, thank you for calling our dental office. We're open Monday through Thursday from 8 to 4 and alternating Tuesdays from 9 to 6 with every other Saturday, or something like that. It doesn't matter, and if anything, it eliminates the reason for somebody to leave a message for you. Unless you're a storefront practice, like in a retail strip mall that gets walk-in traffic, everybody's going to call you first to make an appointment anyway. And even if people do occasionally walk in unannounced, that's no reason to set your policy on an exception like that. So I avoid keeping it short, 20 seconds, 40 seconds at the most. Just let them know who you are, your tagline, that you're delighted they called, you're sorry you can't reach them, invite them to leave a confidential message of any length, and call them back. And be enthusiastic. Remember, you're talking to somebody. Even when you're recording the message, if you're not talking to someone in that moment, you will be when they leave a message, when they call you. If you have an answering service, check it often. I've had very, very limited success with quality answering services. Even if they start out good, they typically, I think, are victims of their own success, and they end up taking on too many clients, getting too busy, and just losing that personal touch. So if you have one and it's good, congratulations. Keep checking it. Make sure that they're not losing their edge. We talked a little bit about on-hold messages. This is what people hear when they're placed on hold. It's a proven fact that it lessens perceived hold time. It's also a fact that every practice places callers on hold. If they don't, they probably are overstaffed and have more fundamental issues. And what you'll see is when we talk about the TAFI introduction, we actually recommend that you place people on hold if you have a professionally produced and regularly updated on-hold message. It's a wonderful tool, and it does lessen perceived hold time. It educates and entertains callers, and it prepares them to speak, your team to speak with the most important person in the world at that time, which is this prospective new patient. So we kind of talked about this already. Call it. Make sure everybody knows what your on-hold message says. Update it regularly to let people know that you're involved with the community, build a professional image, and as I said, prepare to speak with the most important person in the world at that time, which is your newest patient. Here is the much ballyhooed TAFI introduction. This is the scripting that we talk about. Thank you for calling practice name, where we tagline. We already talked about the importance of a tagline. This is Danny. How may I help you? Next answer, whatever they ask. Why is the sky blue? You know, I don't care what they ask, unless they say I'm bleeding profusely or I'm in extreme pain. When can I come in? Then you're permitted to diverge from this script. But otherwise, the answer is, I can help you with that. My name is Danny. May I ask who I'm speaking with? It sets the tone that you're here to help. It's not your name, date of birth, whatever, you know, other interrogatory you might receive from other other practices. Are you in any discomfort? Who may we thank for referring you? Would you mind if I place you on hold for just a moment so I can get to my desk and give you my undivided attention? Again, this is the scaffolding. We want people to understand why we do this, and I will take a little bit of time on it, but we'll do it more as we dig into the presentation further.
Danny, the second point, can I help you with that? My name is, and then your name, at whom am I speaking? In your experience, do most people answering the phone ask for the person's name? Because, I mean, that's fundamental.
Absolutely not.
Right.
They seem to be satisfied with just giving their name. And we will emphasize this again in the talk. But if you do nothing else right at the introduction of the call, if you can get and use the caller's name, you will probably increase your conversion rate by 10 to 15 to 20% just by doing that. Because you can't get and use a caller's name without conveying some degree of empathy. That's why it's so important, and it's so sad for me to listen to calls and so seldom hear people do this, because it's easy and it's fun. It shows you care. But I think people are preoccupied. Yeah, well, and I think part of the problem is sometimes people will be looking at a computer screen and the practice management system has got a list of questions. They got a new patient form, name, date of birth, insurance. Those are the last things you should be talking about. You want to get the name, you want to connect with them emotionally. I can help you with that, Jim. Or I can help you, and you said who you were. I can help you with that. My name is Danny. With whom am I speaking? This is Jim. Hi, Jim. Thanks for calling. Are you in any discomfort presently? Well, why do you think we ask that? Most people will say, oh, well, you asked that because you want to know if there's an emergency so you know how to schedule the appointment. That's true. However, the point I make is that when we ask questions, we're not only in a position to impart information, we also collect, we're not only in a position to collect information, we're also in a position to impart it, Jim. And the information that we're imparting at this point is that we care about you. I'm asking if you're in any discomfort, even if I don't think you are, because it shows that I care. And believe me, people appreciate that. And then when we say, who may we thank for referring you to us, I'll ask, well, what information are we imparting? And people say, well, we want to know if our marketing is working. That's true. That's the information we might be receiving. The information we are imparting at this point is that we're confident. We're assuming you must have been referred by one of our happy patients because they're all happy patients. That's how good we are. Okay? And any one of these by themselves, taken by themselves, may not be that huge, but I'm setting a theme and a tone here of confidence, caring, concern, professionalism, it makes the caller sit up in their chair and say, you know what, this person is really kind of a cut above every other officer or person I've called who says name, hold, right, and answers the phone by saying dental office, hold. It's so easy to distinguish yourselves when everybody is, sorry to say, but so bad at this. And then you have an ace up your sleeve, which is if you're busy at the front desk and you're distracted, you can say, Jim, would you mind if I place you on hold for just a moment so that I can get to my desk and give you my undivided attention? You're asking permission. And by the way, who do you think's in control of this call?
Well, obviously, the person asking the questions, and that's the point of learning these types of skills, Danny.
Yes, sir. Very good. And we're doing multiple things simultaneously here. Not only are we gaining control of the call, but we're doing it in a respectful, caring way. We're establishing rapport, conveying empathy, exuding enthusiasm, asking right questions in the right way. These are very simple, non-invasive questions because we don't yet have permission to delve and to ask open-ended questions of this caller. But we're getting there, okay? And that's why I spend the first several months with our coaching subjects just making sure they master this taffy introduction because it's that powerful. That's why I said earlier, I know in the first 15 to 20 seconds how a call is going to end. Because if a person is doing this, this call is going to end well, 90% of the time. That's why it's such a big takeaway. That's why I'm probably going over Chinese after this tonight. That's setting the stage for success. We're going to move quickly, but the components of communication, there were three. They were actually a professor in UCLA, Albert Moravian, was commissioned to not only identify the components of effective communication, but those that constituted what percentage each of these contributed to effective communication. And it was pretty surprising. These were the statistics. Verbal is the words you use. It only counts for 7% of effective communication. That comes as quite a surprise to many people because the words don't really matter. The inflection, the tone, the resonance, how you use the words you choose is the vocal variety. That constitutes 38% of effective communication. The visual component, body language, the use of the hands, the eye contact, the facial gestures, that's 55%, over half. That's why when you're on the phone, we have what I call the visual gap. And it means that basically when you're communicating on the phone, you're dealing with less than half a deck. And that's because callers can't see you, although I do qualify that, as we do on the CDs, that people do have a mind's eye. And how you communicate with them on the phone, verbally and vocally, will conjure an image. And it will be a positive image or maybe not so positive an image. Keep that in mind. That's why we sometimes recommend mirrors in front of telephones, so that the team member who answers the phone can look at themselves, sit up, smile, assume a proper professional posture, and people will see that over the phone. We do want to talk a little bit about the self-fulfilling prophecy trap, which holds that when we label someone as undesirable, we cannot help but diminish the quality of our communication. It will change for the worse. Somebody calls and says, hi, I'd like to know the price of a crown. You think, oh boy, here's another price shopper. I promise you, you will turn them into a low-quality caller because you reflect what you project, you get what you give. And if you're like, well, we don't quote prices over the phone, and we're really not the lowest price provider, and if that's what you're looking for, you may want to search elsewhere. Okay, thank you, bye-bye. Because externally generated patients do not yet know you or trust you, it doesn't mean that they're not good patients. We've all responded to a promotion, and that doesn't make us trailer trash. I love this line. But we tend to remember the clinkers, the ones that called that gave us a hard time. Oh, they're all bad. Oh, no. And by the way, when I ask for the price of something, it's a conversation starter. If I don't know much about a service, I just call and say, hey, I'd like to know how much your service costs. Doesn't mean I'm interested in the lowest price. Just means I don't know what else to ask. Again, it's like the dating scene. When you were dating, if you still are, someone walks up and says, do you come here often? Do you really think they care if you come here often? I don't think so. They just want to make a connection. They want to strike up a conversation. Keep that in mind.
It's like somebody calling up and saying, why are you calling? I'd like a cleaning. They don't know what else to say. They don't know what you sell. They don't know whether they need specialized care or not. And it's just starting the conversation and having the ability to talk and ask these questions, and knowing how to probe the patients lets you turn them into an excellent patient.
That's correct. They don't know what they don't know. And that's why some people are uncomfortable when I say that as a call handler, you need to control the call. They feel like, oh, I don't want to manipulate people. They know what they want. They really don't know what they want. You're the professional. You owe it to them to manage the call. Otherwise, it's sort of a form of benign neglect. Just like a lot of dental offices don't realize that when they're saying, you know, we'll tolerate bleeding on probing, they don't know what they don't know. Well, it's very similar in the conversation. If you abdicate control, relinquish control to the caller, and I've never actually thought about this or stated it, but it is sort of a form of benign neglect, and we really don't want to be guilty of that. It's my friend Bill Rossi out of Edina gets credit for this quote. Here's a little test that I do when I call an office, and let me just ask you, how do you think your team handle this? When they get a call from someone that they do not know, I need to put that in there, all right? Because if they know the person, then they'll usually respond differently. But if they don't know, and I say, hi, this is Danny calling, how are you? And they don't recognize me, here's what I get 80 to 90% of the time. I'm fine. What can I do for you, Bill? What I prefer to hear, and tells me a lot about the team member, is if I say, hi, this is Bill, how are you? They say, I'm fine, Bill, how are you? And you can tell, if you start doing this, most people will be surprised. They'll say, well, I'm fine, thank you for asking. What a simple way to connect with somebody. So I strongly urge you to consider this, listen to how your team handles calls, and it's just as easy to say, how are you? Just a few extra words that can make a very big difference. Speaking of words, we want to talk about negatively and positively charged words. I love this as an example. Which seminar sounds more appealing to you? This is the title for a seminar: Sexual Harassment in the Workplace and Dealing with Racism, or Men and Women as Allies and Friends and Celebrating Pluralism. You probably guessed by now, they are introductions to the exact same seminar. The difference is that we have a bunch of negatively charged, emotionally charged words at the top: sexual, harassment, unfortunately for some people, workplace, dealing with racism. But that's focusing on the negative, the problem. We're talking about the solution, the yes we can. Come and hear about how we're making men and women allies and friends and celebrating pluralism. And I won't delve deeply because we don't have time, but these are some positive words that you would do well to incorporate into your communications, especially with new patients, prospective patients. These are arrows for your communications quiver, as I like to call them. Pride, conservatism, I don't care what your political bent is, nobody likes to be played fast and loose with their health care. Tell people you employ a conservative approach. That always puts them at ease. Let them know you're proud, that you have an emotional connection, enthusiasm for this practice. And by the way, if you ever want to convince somebody of a position, tell a story. Tell a true story. A story that involves you or someone you know that has happened recently that underscores and illustrates a point. If you ever want to remember something, want people to remember something when you speak to them, tell a story about it. Just as Jim, I can say, we're talking about headsets. Well, Jim Hyland he actually was an easy sell. He wasn't resistant at all, but a lot of people are. Be a better story that Jim was actually resistant because he was so accustomed to using a handset. But then he finally got the headset, and he wonders how he ever lived without it. That's a true story. And I bet you'll remember that. Now, these are the emotional underpinnings, the foundation on which effective communication is built. Empathy, rapport, and enthusiasm. Empathy is the capability to understand another's feelings, to walk a mile in their moccasins, if you will. And rapport is a relation marked by harmony and conformity. And it's important because, I think I mentioned earlier, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So important. They really don't. Another phrase that I like to share from one of my heroes, Maya Angelou: people may not remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And you can think about this. People that you like or don't like, you just have a bad sense for them. You've long since forgotten what they said, but you kind of know the way you felt. And enthusiasm is the energy, the drive behind effective communication. Now, we probably all know people like this. They're sort of at a 10. We'd like to dial them down a few degrees. But on the telephone, it's usually the opposite. People are usually down the scale. We need to up it. Right now, I'm not really speaking in my normal conversational voice. In fact, my wife, Virginia, often tells me, when I talk to her and I'm off the phone, like from out of the office, because we work together, she says, use your phone voice. I can't hear you. Okay? Because I enunciate and I speak a little more loudly, a little more clearly on the phone, because I know I need to overcome that visual gap. And I encourage all of you to do the same. We already talked about this. It bears repeating. Our ideal greeting, our taffy introduction. I can help you with that. My name is Danny. May I ask with whom I'm speaking? And here's another, I think, takeaway for you. And this is counterintuitive. The more difficult the caller's name is to pronounce, the greater opportunity you have to connect with that caller, especially if they have an impediment or English may not be their first language. Think about it. They live in a society where they've gone through life giving their name, and people say, how can I help you, sir? Thanks, Chief. All right, buddy. Yeah, that sounds good, pal. Because the person doesn't want, they may justify in their own mind that they really don't want to embarrass themselves, or they don't want to take the energy, or they think they're wasting the caller's time by taking the time to get their name instead of getting to the reason for the call. I disagree with that completely. If my name is Pradeep Misansalpinfo, and you say, yes, sir, how can I help you? Fine. You've missed an opportunity, if nothing else. You may not have insulted me, but if you said, I'm very sorry, I want to make sure I get the proper spelling and pronunciation of your name. I heard Pradeep. Is that Pradeep? Now, give it a shot. First of all, when you become a really good listener, more often than not, you're going to get it right. But even if you get it wrong, you're going to get points for trying. So it's a no-lose proposition. And then when you get it, now you have it proper. And I mean, how else can you use the name if you don't have it? And remember, that's vitally important. Dale Carnegie, one of my heroes who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, said, he may have borrowed this from Shakespeare. I need to research that. But he said, a person's name is the sweetest sound they will ever hear. Therefore, get and use the name early. When we evaluate callers, this is one of the things we test. How did they show concern for the caller, and how early and often did they use the caller's name? Another vital component of effective communication is understanding the difference between attributes and benefits. An attribute is simply an inherent characteristic, something that you do, something that you offer. B is what's in it for the person. It's vitally important that you convert every attribute into a benefit, because in part, how the person responds to that will tell you what's important to that person, which means you then understand on what you should focus during the rest of the call. It's an intelligence gathering exercise. Not only are you conveying enthusiasm, but you're also learning what's important and valuable to the caller. And a good, it's what's in it for the caller. It's a good or helpful result or effect. And a way to remember to convert, well, I make the pointer that A without B is like a day without sunshine, or it's like the sound of one hand clapping. It's no sound at all. It doesn't resonate. Here's some examples. We offer a complimentary smile analysis, and you might do that. Great. Well, people don't even know what it means, for one thing. Well, let's tell them, and let's use a word bridge. This is how you convert an attribute to a benefit. We offer that means. You can visit our office without cost or obligation to choose for yourself how we can help you receive the care you want and deserve. Here's another one. We offer oral DNA testing. That means we can help identify bacteria that might save your life. Oral systemic care, you could fill it in for yourself. How about the fact that we're an Oravital practice? I sure hope you've got some wonderful benefit statements there, because that really is a key distinguishing characteristic. You can save people's lives. You can nip things in the bud by destroying the bacteria that lead to periodontal disease. Why not, why not sing that from the rooftops?
Danny, I find that this concept resonates with every single patient when you take the time to talk to them for a few minutes, just in terms of connecting with the callers from an Oravital standpoint. When I talk to them that I want to get them healthy, and I talk about the fact that gum disease is a medical condition that dental professionals treat, and I have a concern about their overall health from what I'm seeing in their mouth, could I explain that to them? There isn't a person that doesn't agree with it. And bringing that sort of attribute to the telephone lets the people know that you're a different type of practice, that you're focusing on them as a person overall, not just, whitening or services you offer, because that's what everyone else does.
Exactly. And you've got to really listen, because some people, it's not going to resonate with some people. They're not going to be ready for this. Although I love your introduction, which is we're concerned about your health, because that is such a universal. Who isn't concerned about their health? I mean, some people are in denial, and they don't want to be, and nobody wants to be preached to. And that's where the art comes in. And Jim, you illustrate it by the tone and inflection and resonance of your voice. It's clear to me that you're someone I can trust. You care about my health, and you're building upon that foundation. This takes practice, folks, and this is a perfect example. If you're an Oravital practice, you've got the goods, but you've got to package and deliver those goods in a way that people will respond to, so you can help them. At Boyle, it means nothing less than that. And I talked about arrows in your communications quiver. You want to have pre-rehearsed a set of statements, benefit statements, that you can at will and very comfortably direct to the caller. And again, it's intelligence gathering, but these are things that we do. We're committed to philanthropy. We are connected with the community in whatever ways it is. You support a local charity. You volunteer at a soup kitchen. You do Miles for Smiles. I've got a client I'm going to be doing a ride at, what's it called? WHAM. Wish Across Michigan. It's like Make-A-Wish Foundation. We're doing a 330-mile bike ride. He talks about that with his patients and prospective patients, because then there's quite possibly that they are, or they know someone who's supporting that cause or is involved in that cause, because thousands of people are. Arrows for your communication quiver. I'd like you to do an exercise with your team. Have them jot down one at a time, what is it that they can't wait to tell the caller about your practice? The doctor, the facility, the amenities, et cetera, et cetera. Our practice, our doctor is great because the our list is the attribute. The is great are the benefits. This will only come with practice, folks. I tell you, even if you hire me and I come in every quarter, if I come in and coach your team and then I go away and everybody forgets about it and they just go back to doing things the other way and wait for me to come back in a quarter, your progress is going to be very gradual. I can't work miracles. Ultimately, it has to be self-coaching and a momentum that gets built up. And I'm just there to sort of confirm that we're on course and maybe do a little bit of a booster stage to accelerate the momentum. But I'm depending on the owner and the team to basically practice the distinctions that I'm sharing with them. Questioning is key. We already talked a little bit about that. Connecting with the caller requires that you ask questions, because whoever asks the questions controls the call, and there's the there's the footnote. If you don't like the word control, if you think of manipulation, then think of guide, because we're really guiding people because we're the professionals and we owe it to them to do that. We all like to be in control of the clicker, although they don't click anymore, do they? Basically, there are two general types of questions, open-ended and close-ended. Close-ended are questions that require and demand really a very short, simple answer. Yes, no, up, down, Danny, Bobrow. No, I don't. North, south. And you can get away with these questions at the beginning of a call because, as I mentioned, they're not very intimate. They're not invasive. And that's why we begin with them. And so our regimen is we begin with closed, we continue with open, and we close with closed. And just to show you how we've woven those into our ideal greeting, our taffy introduction. Thank you for calling practice name. This is me. How may I help you? They say whatever they say. I can help you with that. My name is Danny. With whom am I speaking? Are you in any discomfort? Who may we thank for referring you? Do you mind if I place you on hold? So we've gotten them in the habit of answering our questions, but we've done it in a very respectful way that established rapport, conveyed empathy, exuded enthusiasm, and put us in control. And that's key. And once you've identified what they want by listening carefully to, it's time to close the deal. So you went from, actually I sort of skip here. Once you've done this, you place them on hold, you will receive either explicit or implicit permission from the caller to then delve into the main question, which is, why are you calling me today? And then they'll tell you. And if they're not ready to tell you, then you haven't really connected with them yet, and you just probe a little bit more carefully. But by this point, just about every caller, if you do this properly, will be ready to tell you how you can help them, what they want, what's important to them. And then once you identify the want, and they've said, yeah, this sounds good to me, or yeah, can I make an appointment? Time to close the deal, folks. And then you go back to the closed probes. Will mornings or evenings work better for you? What form of payment will you use? Can we help you process your paperwork? To get there, you really need to effectively listen. And when you listen, listen fully and completely, without distraction. That means try to quiet that inside voice that's telling you what you want to say, because sometimes people confuse listening with just waiting for the person to stop talking so you can say what you want to say.
Danny, I think you probably find, that this is an area as well in terms of, we mentioned the caller's name, but they don't, calls that are made aren't closed. They don't say, can I book something for you? They say, is that okay? And the patient can be a little wishy-washy, and then you say, okay, call us if you want. Goodbye. Thank you for contacting the office. But you didn't ask for a date. And I think that's something that's missed a lot.
Well, it is. And if you're going to just hang up without, let me put it this way. That is conventional wisdom, and I don't disagree with it. Okay. The point is that if the team member has done a poor job of connecting with the caller, often the call will just end. I had somebody who worked for me, a very nice man, very knowledgeable in sales. He tried his hand at sales, and he couldn't do it because he could not ask for the order. But the other thing that's more fundamental is if you don't have somebody ask you, can I make an appointment, then yes, absolutely, it's important to say, how does that sound? Would you like to schedule an appointment? Would you like to see what's available? I agree with that. However, if you do this, if you master the art of first impressions, you will find that by using silence at the end, once you've established and confirmed an opportunity and a need, by listening carefully, probing properly, and hearing from the person, you will just have a golden moment of silence. I call it a golden moment, actually. I didn't coin that phrase. Where you give the person the opportunity and the respect to sort of process what you just shared with them. And more often than not, the caller will say, well, can I go ahead and schedule an appointment then? You definitely want to give them the opportunity to do that. If it doesn't happen, I completely agree, then you ask for the order. But you'll find that when you master this technique, more often than not, the caller will say, well, that sounds really good. When can I get in there? And you say, well, let me check the schedule. What works for you? Mornings or evenings better? It's so gratifying. And I'll tell you that when the person asks for the appointment, they're much more likely to show up for the appointment because they made the decision themselves. I think that distinction's clear. I'm not disagreeing with you, Jim. I'm just saying that when you master this, you won't even need to ask for the order. It's sort of like Neo says in The Matrix to Morpheus. You mean I can dodge bullets? He says, I'm telling you that when you're ready, you won't need to. So concentrate on what the patient is saying, not on what you're planning to say next. And really understand the facts. And don't be afraid to clarify. Again, the caller will appreciate it. If you say, I just want to make sure I'm duplicating exactly what you're sharing. You said that you're getting ready for an interview and you're concerned about the appearance of your smile. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm glad you called us because Dr. Hyland is a master at cosmetic dentistry. He loves to work with people that want to improve their smile. And then you're quiet and they say, well, that's great. Tell me more. Okay, well, what else is important to you? It's just probing and finding out what they're telling exactly what they need to know, and then you're matching their needs with what you can deliver. Explore their dissatisfaction. And again, only when you've gotten permission. You know, where are you now? How does that make you feel? So what you're saying is having a better smile would maybe give you a little bit more confidence so you could land that next job. Is that right? So we connect with callers by selling. I know that's an emotionally charged word for people, but selling to me is communication with a purpose. It's empowering people by giving them the information they need to make an informed decision. So first we sell with the positive attitude. Yes, we can, establishing rapport, conveying empathy, and exuding enthusiasm, avoiding the self-fulfilling prophecy trap, using positive words, avoiding negative words, using the close, open, close questioning paradigm, translating attributes to benefits, listening for those wants, and only then moving into the qualification where you collect and confirm details. Because if we're going to do business together, the details can wait. If we're not going to do business together, the details don't matter. Just a little bit, some verbiage. We do work with how to deal with the fees question and how we say we excuse me, we make it easy for you to experience for yourself and for the practice for you by, I hope you offer a complimentary meet and greet, but that's up to you. All financial considerations are shared in advance of any treatment. This goes along with our conservative approach. It's not just clinical, it's financial. We never let affordability get between you and the care you want and deserve. Our financial coordinator's job is to help you receive the care you want in a way that works for you, to receive all the benefits that your plan entitles you to, can also say. And if people really press you on price, give them a range. If they want a crown, I mean, crowns can be as little as $300 if you're offering a temporary, and sometimes people don't need a crown. Let them know that there are options, and you know, that may not be what's in your best interest. We'll certainly be able to deliver it if you want it, but we like to give our patients options and choices. This is something that I think is important. Given your practice situation, if people drive and they need directions, I think it helps to know your north from your south. A lot of people don't, and that can be frustrating. If somebody calls and says, yeah, are you east of the Woolworths? I don't, they don't even have Woolworths anymore. I don't know where I came up with that, but are you east of the Walmart? And they say, I have no idea. You know, I feel like sometimes saying, well, the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west, if that helps any. But no directions. If there's public transportation being used, have the timetable. Maybe have Google open, you know, so people know the major landmarks. This is just service that I think people deserve and expect. And just by way of summary, the taffy introduction, the ideal greeting, connects you to callers by establishing rapport, conveying empathy, exuding enthusiasm, asking the right questions in the right way at the right time, aggressively listening, and that all leads to effective call management or guiding or control of the call. What we recommend by way of order of operations is to get a handle on what your patient value is. If you need that, if you have any doubts about how much opportunity you're missing by not being master telephone communicators, do the exercise. I think it'll be very enlightening. Calculate batting averages. We can help you with that. You really need to listen to the calls to know how many opportunities you're getting and how many you're actually closing to calculate this. And then, because our service does listen to the calls, we can customize the coaching for you. Your team might be graded, to carry the batting of the baseball analogy a little further, they might be great at hitting fastballs, but they've got a problem when they get pitched a slider. Well, we'll know that because we can listen to the calls, and we can coach your team to hit a slider better. That's the art of first impressions. Once we do that, and I think, frankly, only once we do that, should you think about investing in marketing. And if and when you're ready and your team are ready to invest in marketing, I know a good company to talk to, but whoever you work with, get your internal house in order, become master telephone communicators, and any investment in marketing then is guaranteed to generate a far higher return on investment than it otherwise would. And I hope that this evening's presentation helped explain why. This is just final review. We do it. Thank you for calling ADM, where we make the connection. This is Danny. How may I help you? Whatever they say, how much does your marketing cost? I can help you with that. My name is Danny. With whom am I speaking? I don't always say you any discomfort, but there are practice pain points. And then, who we may thank for referring you. And if I'm busy, distracted, I'll put them on hold. If I'm not, I won't. But it's a tool, and we have a regularly updated on-hold message system. These are the deliverables of the service. We offer a service and a product, but basically the product is phase one of the service. We have a 2 CD set that Bill Blatchford and I put together, 2 hours of coaching, 14 sample calls that illustrate the distinctions inherent in the art of first impressions. We have a 24-page work booklet. We also provide you with a 1-year access to our members-only blog. Every month I do a call of the month where I share it with our subscribers to help them self-coach. I ask them to listen to the call, evaluate it before they read my evaluation. So you can practice your self-coaching chops. I really want you to be self-sufficient. Phase 2 is a team meeting. It can be done either on-site or via GoToMeeting, this platform, where I go over, I make sure the team listened. We want them to have listened to the CDs and work the exercises. Then I get a sort of a baseline. I confirm where they're at. Do you buy into this? Are you comfortable with it? Do you have any questions? We go into more detail on questioning and listening technique. And then phase 3 is confirm that they master the TAFE introduction, because it's so important. As I mentioned, it's the first 20 to 30 seconds of the call, and it typically makes or breaks the rest of the call. People say, I have a hard time with the insurance question or the price question. Can you give me a magic bullet? I said I could, but you need the gun or you need the foundation. It's like saying, I want the plans for my 4th story of my house, but I haven't laid the foundation yet. You need to master the TAFE introduction, because that sets the tone for the call. That puts you in control, and that will lead to a positive outcome. Once we master that, we then do get into considerable role plays with your team. We actually ask for the caller's feedback. We don't really focus on how the team member felt they did. We ask the caller, who was part of the role play, how did the team member make you feel? How did you feel about that? Did they connect with you? What opportunities might they have missed? Or what did they do right? What would you like to hear more of? And then we really drill down and coach individual team members based on the actual challenges that they face in handling calls from prospective patients. In terms of what we're offering to attendees, I suggest you visit theartoffirstimpressions.com to learn more about the service. If you're interested in getting started, you can click on the Store tab there at the top, second from the right on the menu. And you have 2 options if you want to become a TAFE master. You can start with the TAFE product, which is $497. What I will include is phase 2, which is the personal team presentation. I will do that with you via GoToMeeting. If you want me to fly out and meet you, there would be an extra fee for that. But I typically get $600 for that. I'm including that. So basically, you're getting $1,000, if I do my math right, $1,097 value for $497. If you want to go full boat on the Taffy service, that investment depends on how many team members you wish to be coached, but we are offering $250 off if you enter the promo code of Taffy250, and that's good through June 30th. And with that, I want to thank you all very much for your time. I will just see if this loads. This is the APCO worksheet, and this will help you calculate your average annual patient contribution to overhead. And this is what it is. I've taken the liberty of filling this one in. Put the patient name if you want, how much hygiene revenue, how much dental revenue. The system will automatically total. You can enter your adjustment factors here. And in this case, this was the average annual value. This practice actually places a lot of implants, which is why I think their average annual value is higher than most. But whatever it is, you'll probably be pleasantly surprised with how much an average patient is worth to you. And then you can also calculate break-even percent if you wanted to, like, say, well, I'm thinking about spending $25,000 on a marketing plan, or $2,500 on a marketing plan, and that's going to enable me to reach 4,000 people. Well, based on that, my break-even quantity is like one person, based on your value, because you only have to get one patient to basically break even. See how that goes. Your break-even percent is 0.03%. That would probably be a pretty worthwhile investment. If you had any reason to believe that you were going to, I mean, that's a ridiculously low return on our response rate, 0.03%. And then from here, you could say, well, how many people responded to your marketing tactic? This would be after the fact. Let's say you did a program and you got 250 calls, and of those, you only converted 80, all right? And of those, only 70 showed up. Well, your batting average is 320. That's probably pretty standard. But let's say that you got 250 respondents and you're a master telephone communicator and you converted 220 of those. And 200 of those showed up. Sorry. Well, then your batting average is 880, which is more in line with what it should be. Your return on investment is like 19,000%. The return on investment in dollars is 500,000. That's not even counting your patient lifetime value. This is annual value. So marketing, it's not for the faint of heart, but if you have these numbers, you can make some really informed decisions about whether to invest in something. And here's how to calculate your patient lifetime. You generate a report showing the total number of years all active patients have been with the practice. And I assumed here 2,000 patients, an average of 10 years. So 20,000 divided by 2,000, that's your average patient lifetime. I'm sorry, we pulled up all the patients and saw that they were a total of 20,000 years of relationship, and then we divided that by the total number of active patients to come up with the average patient lifetime. Now we can multiply the average patient lifetime by the average annual value to get your average patient lifetime value, which is 24,000. And I guess I lied, there was more math. But I'm happy to send this to you and walk you through the calculations yourselves if you'd like. And with that, I will thank you. I know we went over. I hope it was time well spent for you. And if I can be of any assistance, please don't hesitate. I'll entertain any questions at this time, Jim.
Thank you very much, Danny. Do any of the attendees can they go live with us now, Danny, or do they have to type in if they're asking questions?
Yeah, you should have the questions there, Jim.
I don't have any at the moment to the side, so there are none typed in at the moment. If any of the attendees would like to ask a question, please type it in now, and I can pass things through to Danny as well. Sorry, Danny, I don't have that in front of me, the thing that you're referring to. I apologize.
Well, that's all right. Well, we've sort of ran over anyway. I'll be happy to answer any questions offline.
Are there any things you just wanted to quickly review, Danny, to make sure you covered things and to emphasize points that you consider are important?
I don't think so. Again, I tried to keep it, as close to an hour as possible, but nope.
Okay, then. Thank you very much to those that have attended. Danny, I appreciate your time and sharing your expertise with everybody. We will send this information out, the test that you're talking about, so people can get continuing education, and a reminder of how they can get in contact with you and the promotional offer that you have given them. Danny, thanks again for coming, and to all those that have attended, have a good day and goodbye.
Thank you very much.